Concern is growing around Micah Parsons after new comments suggest he's still hurt by a Cowboys trade decision, and it's raising uncomfortable questions in Dallas. Is this just emotional fallout, or something that could linger into the locker room? At the same time, the pressure debate is heating up elsewhere in the league. Who's actually under more fire right now, Baker Mayfield or Bryce Young? Expectations, narratives, and careers are colliding, and the timing couldn't be more intense. One storyline is personal, the other is professional, but both could define what comes next. Alright, imagine waking up to this headline and trying to make sense of it as a Cowboys fan. Micah Parsons is still hurt not just physically, but by the trade noise swirling around him. And at the same time, the league is quietly setting up a pressure cooker in Carolina and Tampa Bay, where Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young are staring at very different, but equally dangerous, crossroads in their careers. This is one of those moments where everything feels connected, even though it looks like three separate stories on the surface. Let's start in Dallas, because that's where the emotional shockwave really begins. Micah Parsons has been the heart of this defense, the engine, the identity. Every time he lines up, offenses panic. Coordinators change entire game plans because number 11 is on the field. So when trade rumors even whisper his name, it's not just disrespectful, it cuts deep. And sources close to the situation are saying Micah isn't just dealing with the usual bumps and bruises of an NFL season, he's dealing with frustration. He's dealing with the feeling that loyalty might not be as strong on the other side of the building as it is on the field. Think about it from Micah's perspective. You come into the league, you dominate immediately, you become a Defensive Player of the Year candidate almost every season, you play through pain, you represent the star with pride. And then suddenly, during a chaotic stretch for the franchise, your name pops up in trade discussions, even if they're hypothetical. For most players, that's noise. For a competitor like Micah Parsons, that's personal. This is the kind of thing that lingers. This is the kind of thing that changes how a player views an organization, even if nothing actually happens. And here's the key part people are missing. When we say Micah Parsons is still hurt, it's not just about a shoulder, a knee, or a nagging injury. It's about trust. It's about feeling secure. Dallas has spent years talking about culture, about building around elite talent, about doing things the right way. But when rumors start flying instead of firm statements of commitment, players notice. Stars notice. And Micah Parsons is not just any star, he's the franchise defender. Now zoom out for a second and look at the Cowboys as a whole. This is a team stuck in between worlds. Not bad enough to tear it all down, not good enough to break through in January. That's when front offices start flirting with dangerous ideas. Big swings. Shock trades. What-if scenarios. And even if those conversations never become real offers, the damage can already be done. Because the locker room feels it. Fans feel it. And your best player absolutely feels it. So the question becomes, if Micah Parsons is emotionally checked out even a little, what does that mean for Dallas moving forward? Does he still play hard? Of course. Does he still dominate? Probably. But football is a business, and elite players remember how they were treated when things got uncomfortable. This is how long-term fractures begin, quietly, before anyone notices. Now let's pivot. Because while Dallas is dealing with tension and trust issues, another type of pressure is building elsewhere in the league. A much louder, much more public pressure. And it's centered around two quarterbacks whose careers are being judged in completely different ways, Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young. On the surface, the question sounds simple. Who's under more pressure right now, Baker or Bryce? But once you dig in, it becomes one of the most fascinating quarterback debates in the NFL today. Let's talk about Baker first. Baker Mayfield is living on borrowed time, even when he's playing well. That's the reality. He's the veteran who's already been written off once, maybe twice. He's bounced around, he's been doubted, he's been humbled. And now, he's in that dangerous middle zone where expectations exist, but patience doesn't. If Baker plays great, people say, okay, but can he do it again? If he struggles, the reaction is instant, here we go again. The pressure on Baker is about validation. Every snap feels like a referendum on his entire career. Is he a legitimate starting quarterback in this league, or just a temporary answer until the next shiny prospect shows up? That's the weight he's carrying. And the worst part is, Baker doesn't have the luxury of development time. He doesn't get excuses. He doesn't get grace periods. He has to be good now, consistently, or the door starts closing fast. But here's where it gets interesting. As intense as Baker's pressure is, Bryce Young's might actually be heavier, just in a different way. Bryce isn't fighting for survival yet, he's fighting for belief. And that can be even more brutal. Bryce Young came into the league with enormous expectations. First overall pick. Franchise savior. Face of the rebuild. When you're drafted that high, every mistake is magnified. Every loss feels like your fault, even when the roster around you isn't ready. Bryce is still early in his career, but the NFL doesn't wait. Fans don't wait. Media definitely doesn't wait. The pressure on Bryce Young isn't about today's stat line, it's about the future. It's about whether the organization made the right choice. It's about whether he can become the guy or if the team will quietly start looking for alternatives. And that's a scary place to be for a young quarterback, because once doubt creeps in, it spreads fast. So who's under more pressure? Baker has pressure because he could lose everything tomorrow. Bryce has pressure because his entire career arc is being shaped right now. One bad season doesn't end Bryce Young, but it can change how he's viewed forever. It can change how much patience he gets. It can change how aggressively the team builds around him. And here's where all three stories collide in a strange way. Micah Parsons, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Young are all dealing with the same underlying issue, uncertainty. Micah doesn't know if Dallas fully has his back. Baker doesn't know if he'll ever be fully trusted as a long-term answer. Bryce doesn't know how long the league will give him before the narrative hardens. This is the NFL at its most ruthless. Talent isn't enough. Effort isn't enough. Timing, perception, and organizational stability matter just as much. Micah Parsons can be the best defender in football and still feel disrespected. Baker Mayfield can play winning football and still feel disposable. Bryce Young can show flashes of brilliance and still feel the weight of being the pick. And if you're a fan, this is where emotions start running hot. Cowboys fans are asking why their generational defender is even mentioned in trade rumors. Bucs fans are wondering how long Baker's leash really is. Panthers fans are split between patience and panic when it comes to Bryce. The next few weeks matter more than people realize. Not just in wins and losses, but in tone, in messaging, in confidence. Dallas needs to make it crystal clear where Micah Parsons stands, or risk long-term damage. Baker needs to stack performances and force respect, not just praise. Bryce needs stability, support, and just enough success to quiet the noise before it gets deafening. Because in this league, once the story is written, it's almost impossible to erase. And right now, all three of these stories are still being drafted in real time. So let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. If you're building a team today, who do you feel more confident about long-term? The superstar defender who feels slighted? The veteran quarterback fighting for survival? Or the young quarterback carrying the weight of an entire franchise's future? Drop your take in the comments, because this conversation is far from over. And trust me, the next headline could change everything.